When you're stuck, if you are not willing to look at what needs to be looked at and deal with what needs to be dealt with, no problem. Welcome to being human, but you're going to go a lot further faster and you're going to get unstuck faster by saying it. I am not willing to do the work to get unstuck today because it's too damn scary. Great. You're only going to be able to be honest with yourself that way so many days before you're like, I'm sick of my crap. I'm ready to do the work now. But if we can own that the choice to not get unstuck is a valid option, but if you can own it and name it, eventually you're going to get sick of it and you're going to want to do something else. It's a really powerful hack.
I'm Riley Reese. This is the Sophia Unfiltered podcast where we bring together thought leaders, wellness entrepreneurs, makers, and emerging health leaders. We're here to have raw, unfiltered conversations because sharing your stories has the power to change lives, help others heal, and transform the way we take care of ourselves. Here we go. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Sophia Unfiltered. I'm Riley Reese, and today we're talking about getting unstuck with Britt Frank. She's a neuropsychotherapist who helps people figure out what's keeping them stuck and how to move forward. Britt, we are so glad to have you here. To kick things off, can you share what it means to get unstuck? What are we talking about today?
I love that question so much because everyone can relate to I feel stuck, but what does that actually mean? So, to be a responsible healthcare practitioner, it's important for me to name this. When I'm talking about getting unstuck, I'm not talking about oppression, abuse. I'm not talking about macro level systemic inequity. I'm talking about you're sitting on your couch and you're going, okay, I know exactly what I need to do to make my life good. I need to eat some vegetables and take a walk and call a friend and hug a puppy. Nevertheless, I'm doom scrolling till 3 in the morning. What's my problem? That's the kind of stuckness that my work really focuses on. It's the I know what I'm supposed to do, and there's no logical reason I can't do it, and I'm not doing it. What's going on? And that thing keeps so many of us from living the lives that we want to live and being who we want to be. And there's science to explain why. Spoiler alert, sorry, my brain glitched there. You're not lazy. There's no such thing as a lazy person. That's not a thing. And so I really love
Whoa,
to
whoa. There's no such thing as lazy. I love this. Now, is this like procrastination or is this the same? Like some people might be thinking, okay, I'm just not gonna do my homework. I'm not gonna write the paper. I'm just gonna wait to the last minute.
The word procrastination drives me bananas because it's so loaded with shame and it really has this undercurrent of there's something wrong with you and you need to be getting up and shame on you if you can't.
Oh no.
It's not I hate that word. I understand the phenomenon is real, but procrastination is often a freeze response in our brain, keeping us locked down because it is afraid of threat, or it's a reasonable reaction to a life that's really busy and chaotic and a world that's on fire.
Oh my
Sometimes
God.
procrastination makes sense. Yeah.
Oh my God. So it's actually completely different than being in the stuck mode because you're in kind of that fear panic, which makes sense why I would be like waiting till the last minute to write a paper.
Right. And then for some people, especially if they identify as neurodivergent, ADHD specifically, it's well, I can't really get myself going or feel motivated until it's last minute and there's a fire. And there are science reasons to explain why that happens. And we can harness that. The dopamine adrenaline rush that you get when there's a crisis creates a new safety set of parameters for the brain. But the thing is still the same. If your brain thinks that you're safer not doing a thing, it's going to shut you down. Brains are not wired for success, they're wired for survival.
Wow, that's super cool. So on the unstuck, you said there's actually science to prove why we get into these
Oh, yeah. I mean, stuckness sometimes is a freeze response. So
freeze
fight, flight,
response. Okay.
freeze, a shutdown. Sometimes it just makes sense. Sometimes you're tired. Sometimes you're hungry. Sometimes you are out of juice, and a car that's out of gas isn't going to run no matter how many affirmations you chant over it or how much journaling or vision boarding you do. I'm not anti those things. But a car out of gas needs its gas tank refilled. And I didn't know this, I don't know about you, but I didn't understand that my brain does have a gas tank and it has things that it does in my nervous system. And for whatever reason, even if I don't think logically it should feel unsafe, if it feels unsafe, it's going to, it's like draining the gas tank and then you're going nowhere quickly. But a fight, flight, freeze, and I think we're talking about it more now, which is good. But the fight, flight, freeze response, we can work with it. But if you don't know it's a freeze response, there's nothing wrong with you, then you're going to go, what's wrong with me? I must be lazy. And then yelling at yourself releases cortisol, which then makes your stress fear response worse, which then makes your stuckness worse. So we have to start with what's my brain doing? and start with the assumption that it's on your effing side. Our brains are not our enemies.
Yeah, so when we're talking about the freeze response, and I just want to unpack a lot of this, right? So you're talking about the freeze response, but you're also talking about the brain and like, is it full of energy? Like, where is it right now? Like, how do we know where we're at, right? How do we? Okay, we can obviously know if we're hungry, but what are the other things that you mentioned that you didn't know? Like, how do we know that we're out of gas? I mean, but we know we're tired, we know we're hungry. Is
I
that it?
think I don't always know when I'm hungry either because I've had all the eating disorders. So sometimes I get dissociated and I don't know that I'm hungry. All I know is now I'm biting everyone's head off and I'm a raging bitch. And it's, oh, I need to eat some food. Skik. Little bit, like, "Here's the Snickers, let's
Right,
fix this."
right.
But I think it's safe to assume if you're doing things that you don't want to be doing, if you're watching another TikTok video and you know you need to be sleeping, if you are going out and answering the late night, "Hey, you up?" texts when you know that nothing good is gonna happen after a date that starts at midnight, but you're doing them anyway, it's safe to assume that your brain is out of gas and it needs something. And often we're seeking to minimize discomfort because going inside our minds and asking, "Who am I and what do I need?" is a really, really aggressively scary question for a lot of us to ask, especially if we have things in there that we don't want to deal with. But if you're looking at your life and your choices or your behaviors, it's not hard if you're paying attention to go, okay, I think I need a little bit of love in this area. I think I might need a trip to the gas station and someone to help me push the car there.
Interesting. So a lot of the late night scrolling, up all night, you're searching your brains needs something, you don't know what it is.
It's tough, and, I wrote a chapter in my book, The Science of Stuck, about pilots, actually, and how if you're in a death spiral and you look out your window and you're just trusting what you see and feel, it looks like you're flying straight and everything is fine, but you don't know that the plane is actually going into a downward spiral, and that happens with people and our behaviors, and so the fix for in aviation, correct me if I'm wrong, is
Mhm.
to get instrument certified, and then instead of trusting what you feel, trust your instruments.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for humans, the equivalent of trust your instruments is finding people that know you that will tell you when they see something is off and getting familiar with your own behavior. So I know if I'm late night scrolling, that's the equivalent of my instrument lights flashing, going, problem, problem. Anxiety is an indicator light on the dashboard of your mind. Anxiety is not the problem. Anxiety is on your instrument panel going, hey, 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 we need warning, warning. But we get so hypnotized by our symptoms, we forget that they are signals. They're our instrument panel and they're trying to help us not crash.
So, I mean, that must be so much easier when you've got a computer, right?
Right.
We're so complicated. Humans are like the most complex computers. So, I mean, is this probably pretty much one of the primary reasons people are just endlessly scrolling on social media and TikTok?
Scrolling does a lot of jobs. First of all, this way those things are and I do it too. I'm not saying I don't. They're engineered to be addicting. They're engineered to keep your brain in these micro dopamine drips that say, do it again, one more video, one more video. I need to watch the perfect video before I stop watching videos. And we do that because those apps are engineered to make us do that. But they also have a self-soothing numbing mechanism. There's nothing necessarily good about it, but when you're scrolling and it's info, 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 that allows you to ignore your instruments and to ignore all of your indicator lights. And then all of a sudden it's what's wrong with me? I can't sleep, which then sets your next day up to be a disaster. And then downward we go.
And
You-
downward spiral.
And downward spiral we go. Exactly. And we don't need to shame ourselves. It's an indicator light. What's wrong with me? Nothing. Your lights, your lights blinking. So let's figure out. Let's start with basics. Are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? If we've solved for all of that, then let's look at what's true for you, what's true about you. And that's the hardest work that there is as a human, I think.
Yeah, and that must be just really hard. I mean, if you're trying to block things out, endless scrolling sounds like it's just much easier so you don't have to deal with things. So I guess there's another component like to this stuck piece is like some people just don't want to deal with what the actual problem is. So we have to be looking at we actually want to get unstuck. So I'd say that isn't that kind of like the first thing is like I want to choose and to take the actions to have I don't want to say better life, but I
Yeah.
to be
And
unstuck.
you can say that getting unstuck does create a better life. If, again, assuming you have safety and choices and access to the resources that you need to make those choices. But I don't know if I was a pack a day smoker for 20 years. I have clocked 100,000 plus cigarettes that I have smoked. There was a time where I wanted to quit, but I didn't really. What I wanted was I want to quit. What helped me get there was to spend some time in the I really want to be a non-smoker, but I'm not willing to do it right now. In saying that, I owned that choice instead of I shouldn't and I know it's bad for me and I really don't want this. Nevertheless, I'm chain smoking another pack of Marlboros. When you're stuck, if you are not willing to look at what needs to be looked at and deal with what needs to be dealt with, no problem. Welcome to being human, but you're going to go a lot further faster and you're going to get unstuck faster by saying it. I am not willing to do the work to get unstuck today because it's too damn scary. Great. You're only going to be able to be honest with yourself that way so many days before you're like, "Okay, I'm sick of my crap. I'm ready to do the work now." But if we can own that the choice to not get unstuck is a valid option, but if you can own it and name it, eventually you're gonna get sick of it and you're gonna wanna do something else. It's a really
Like,
powerful hack.
yeah, I mean, isn't the old saying like you have to name it to tame it? Like, is that for
Yeah,
stress? Is
yeah,
that stress or anxiety? Like, name it to tame it. And once you name it, you figure out, you pinpoint what it is, then take care of the problem.
I think Dr. Dan Siegel came up with that phrase. I've heard it a lot, and what he's talking about is I love it so much. When you name the symptom, you deactivate some of its power. So if you're stuck and it's, "I wanna get unstuck and I wanna get fit and I wanna whatever,"
Great, great. I want whatever. Smoking,
let's
XYZ
start
run.
Yeah, start with, "I'm not willing to do it today." But that is a valid choice. Don't beat yourself up. "What's wrong with me that I don't want to today?" I don't know, you're tired. Life is hard. The world's on fire. You don't feel like it today. Great, no problem. But own it, name it, tame it, and tomorrow you're gonna hear yourself name it, and you'll be like, "Well, this actually sucks. Maybe it would be less bad to try to do some of the work of change." And when the doing the work is less bad than not doing the work gets done.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen this work time and time again? I mean, we know exists. We know the name entertainment, but like in your clients, do you see this like time and time again where people are like, name it, then a few weeks later, a few months later, are they like, okay, I'm just done with this like shit. Like, just give me, I'm done with my own crap, like you mentioned. Like, let's just get this fixed. Do you see a shift in people, like in your clients?
The shift that isn't from symptom to no symptom, like, I can name your anxiety, quote, "attack." Anxiety doesn't attack, sidebar, it's a signal, but anxiety will lessen when you say, "My brain thinks there's a problem, I am experiencing anxiety." Naming it calms it down, but what shifts over time is the sense of powerlessness, overwhelm. When we're confused, "What's going on? I don't understand. Why is my brain doing this?" That confusion fuels the stuckness. But we can solve for confusion. You don't even need to be a neuroscientist. I'm not. You can just say, because brains are going to brain. That's why it's doing it. And then the next thing to ask yourself is, what are my choices right now? One choice is to do nothing. Another choice is to do all of the things. Both of those aren't great. But the choice that gets overlooked the most, that's the most powerful tool to get unstuck, is what's the smallest thing I can do right now? I call them micro yeses. What's the smallest possible thing I can do that will get me at least on a forward track? And I'll give you an example. When I was addicted to crystal meth, not my best life choices. I was, I had come off a bender. I was tweaking. I was not going to sit there and journal. I was not going to go to therapy in that moment. My micro yes was eat a yogurt. I hadn't eaten food in days. Eat it. And I called someone who said, "Bray, when was the last time you ate anything?" She's like, "Okay, go to your fridge, open it up, take the yogurt out." And she sat with me on the phone for an hour eating the yogurt spoonful by spoonful. That's a micro yes. You're not going to do an Instagram live or make a YouTube video or a TikTok about that. But those tiny microscopic steps allow you to get moving. I didn't wait until I sobered up. A micro yes is for right now, wherever you're at, whatever's going on. Almost always, not always, but almost always, there is a micro yes available to you. So do it and don't minimize how powerful they are. I got from that bathroom smoking meth to this little YouTube studio that I'm in right now by doing that. They work.
I mean, that's just so powerful. It's incredible. And you know what's interesting, in the startup business world, one of my mentors, she told me a long time ago, everybody goes out and tries to raise money for their business and do these big, big things. And when you're starting out, you're looking up at these big, massive businesses like, how am I ever going to get there? And it's just like when you're going from, smoking crystal meth in the bathroom to how am I going to get to where you're at today? That's a big transition. And you're like, how am I going to get there? Well, it's a million micro yeses. And just the same thing, like she told me, she was like, Okay, some people go raise hundreds of millions of dollars. She said, but what's the next decision you have to make? What's the next hire that you have to make? What's the next, small decision that's going to make an impact? Like you can't think about all the things that you don't have in that, you know, $1 billion thing down the road. What's the next thing that you have control over like right now? And that was so powerful. It shifted the whole company and where we're at today, but it's the same. No matter what, these micro yeses are powerful, whether it's on the health side, the business side, like all aspects of your life.
Yes, like and I get it because I felt the same way. It's like, how am I supposed to build a global empire if I'm doing this stupid stuff? And the answer is you're gonna get where you're going faster by doing micro yeses than by trying to take a step that feels too big. Then you get stuck and you choke on it and your brain can't metabolize it. I like to call stuckness brain indigestion. Because again, it's not a moral failing. It's you tried to do a thing, your brain didn't like it and it won't digest it. So now you're stuck. So great. We got to make it smaller and then bank it as a win. The other thing with micro yeses is they don't work if you don't give yourself credit. If I do a micro yes and then I go, well, that was dumb. That's not going to get me anywhere, blah, blah, blah. Well, now I've overridden my micro yes with a shame cortisol spike. So you have to go, yay, I did a thing. Pat yourself on the back and then do it again and then make it as small as you need to get it done. One small step forward is always preferable to none.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's like, how did you get here? One day at a time, one step at a time, like one tiny win at a time, but it's also like, it can feel like there's just a lot of waves crashing on you. So I feel like there's a resilience part of keep going, like no matter what we're doing, right? Whether we're trying to lose weight, whatever, like life happens. Like life is, like you said, chaotic. You can feel like it's on fire. There's a lot of waves coming at you left and right. So you just be happy for that one little, yes, I've got one little win today.
I love that. And what you're talking about is true. And it's this expectation that there shouldn't be waves. I'll go back to the car gas analogy. When my car runs out of gas, I don't flip out about it. It's not, oh my God, my car's out of gas again. It's like, yeah, that's how cars are. You drive and they run out of gas, you go to the gas station, you fill them up. That is not anything that anyone struggles with because we expect it to happen. When we expect ourselves to live in this steady state reality where nothing knocks us over, that's when that shame spiral and that downward spiral comes. But if we know cars are gonna run out of gas, and then, yeah, you're gonna go to the gas station. It's not interrupting our process or our progress. If you're on a road trip and you see yourself going low, you're not like, "Why did I even try to take this road trip? What was I thinking? Of course I can't drive 500 miles." It's like, "No, you're gonna run out of gas. Go to the gas station, fill up, and let's get back on the road again." And it's very, very true with whatever we're stuck with, fitness, finances, business, relationships. It's, "Okay, you're out. Let's fill you up, and let's get back on the road."
That's incredible. Okay, let's go through the signs. Like, I mean, we just talked about scrolling, but just for our listeners, what are some signs that you've seen when you're stuck?
And again, this is like it's so individual for people, but generally, broadly speaking, if you're doing too much of things that are not good for you and not nearly enough of the things that you know would help you, that's a cue that we're in the stuck zone. So it's like, I know I shouldn't be, but nevertheless I am. The internal chatter sounds like, well, part of me knows exactly what I need to do, but this other part of me seems to be behind the steering wheel and driving me completely in the opposite direction. That's your sign of stuckness, whatever that means for you.
That's interesting because when you think about it, I never say, "Oh, I shouldn't be at the gym working out."
Right.
Doing the good things. Like when I'm accomplishing things, I'm never like, "Oh man, I shouldn't have been doing this for the business, or I shouldn't have been doing." Like I never have that thought, but I do have that thought. I'm like, "Oh, I shouldn't have eaten that candy bar," you but sometimes I'm like, "Whatever, I deserve it," So there's that too. But it's interesting how if you think about that, what are you saying you shouldn't be doing? That's kind of the biggest key. I'm just trying to relate that to what can people relate this to?
Yeah, and the context matters, right? So after a multi-day meth bender, when I haven't eaten anything, if I were to eat 3 cheeseburgers, we're gonna call that a win. We're gonna call that the best self-care decision I could ever do. But if I am struggling with IBS and inflammation and whatever, 3 McDonald's cheeseburgers is not gonna get clocked as a win. And it's the same behavior, but the context matters.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I get
so I
that.
think a good starting place is before you go to why didn't I, like, let's start with what's the context that this behavior is happening in? Because it might actually make sense and it might even be good. Sometimes procrastination is your body saying F off, we're tired because you ground us into the, dirt for the last 18 hours and we need sleep and food. So context first, then micro yes, what are my choices second?
Okay, that's awesome. So if we realize that we're in this stuck pattern, whatever the situation may be, what are the first steps somebody should take?
Not ask why. And this one also, hot take, and I'm a therapist saying this. The why question, why is this happening? Why am I doing this? Why am I not? Whatever.
Oh, relationships, right? There's a lot of, how do I always end up with the same person?
Or why did they not text? And why did they not call? And why did they blah, blah, blah? Why is a very useful question, but that's like a mile 9 question on a marathon, not a starting gate question. If you and I were standing together right now and our building caught on fire, we're not going to ask, why is the building on
Yeah.
fire? We're going to go, where's the exit? Like, we need to get out. We'll
We need
figure
to,
out why
we need to ask.
later.
Right.
Right. So with the why do they do that? A better way to, because we can answer that. Sure, I'll give you a diagram of here's their family of origin trauma and here's why this happens. But that doesn't fix it or change it or solve it. So with other people, if you feel stuck in relationships, instead of asking why are they doing that, a better question is how do you feel about it? I don't like that they're doing that. And then what are my choices? And then of those choices, what's the micro yes? And then why am I doing it? Why am I smoking meth was not a starting gate question. It's what do I need right now? Food. What's
Mhm.
my micro yes? Yogurt. So switch those why questions to what's needed here. What am I tolerating? What am I permitting? What am I doing? And then what are my choices? And so ditch the why. If we want to put this into a here's how to get unstuck in 3 easy steps. Step 1,
Yes.
ditch the why.
Pinterest this for me.
Exactly. Like this is our neat and clean social media worthy graphic. Step 1, ditch the why. Right now, why doesn't matter. Step 2, what are your choices? Pick 3. You don't have to like them, just list them. Step 3, find your micro yes in those choices and do it. Pat on the back, repeat, do it again. If you really need to know why, ask later once you're up and running, once the fire is out. And often, once we're doing what we want to do, the why, I like the deep dive why because I've made my life's work understanding it. But I think a lot of people don't care why, they just want it solved. Like, I don't care why it's happening. Let's just fix it so it's not happening anymore.
Yeah, yeah, that would be me. Like, just fix it.
Let's just go the other way. Yeah.
Okay, really interesting. And I know you brought up some great points. And I feel like this kind of gets into your next book, right? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? So it's the science of suck. So people, if anybody's listening right now and you want to go through, really hear Britt through the book, how to get unstuck if you're ready to make a change or ready to even learn about making a change or own your own shit. Britt, do you want to tell us about a little bit about it? The science of stuck?
The Science of Stuck. I'm so happy I got to write this book because it's the book my younger self needed when she was a hot train wreck mess and didn't know where to start. Because it's a really simple, here are just some bottom lines. Let's get you unstuck first and let's get you back into motion. And so it's a curation of all my favorite tools, tricks, things that I've learned, but I make it really simple. I don't think there's any merit in making a 5 syllable word when one will do. Let's take all, and I appreciate the academics because we need to know what they know, but I also am big on let's just make this conversational, easy to understand so we can use it and get moving. So the science of stuck was sort of my nod to my younger self because she didn't have that book and she needed it. And so I'm really happy with how it came out.
Yeah, and as a neuropsychotherapist, I mean, that's a big, big word for people, right? So I'm sure you have a lot of academics and a lot of science to put in there. So I'm sure it's amazing that you kind of just make it simple, right? Tell us what we need to do. What are the steps? And cool, you have the science to know, like, this is backed by science, this works.
Right, and it's the science of stuck, not the moral failing of stuck. It's there's a reason we're stuck, and it's not laziness, it's not lack of motivation, and it's not that you suck. There's science to explain what's happening. Here's how it works. It's driver's ed for the brain, essentially.
Oh my gosh, I love that analogy so much. Um, really so much. Okay, and can you tell me a little bit about the next book that you've got coming out?
Yes, so the new book, which I'm so excited to share, it's called Align Your Minds, and it's based on parts work, which is based on the internal family systems model of therapy. And my let's make it simple. little spiel is most of us have voices in our heads. We have voices that yell at us that we're not doing enough or that we're too much or that we're not going to make it. We have the critic and the procrastinator and the worrier and the saboteur. Imagine if all of the voices in our head could get along. They can. Here's how. And then that book unpacks a framework to help you really retrain all the voices in your head so they
Yeah,
can work
I was gonna
together.
say, I don't need them do I need them to work together or just be supportive, right?
I think of it like a company. Like you have a marketing team and an accounting team, and they don't have to work together. But when they understand what the other one is up to, and a competent CEO is in charge of the whole thing, then they can harmonize together. You know, they can do their thing.
So you're talking about this from family trauma, right? So doing parts work, right? Is that from family trauma?
Internal family systems is a model that basically
Mhm.
goes with inside your mind is the equivalent of a huge family. I like to think of it as a company, but got children and angry teenagers, and you've got cranky parents, and inside your mind is this huge family.
Why do we have all of these voices in our brains?
I have no idea. I have not solved for how consciousness came to be a thing, so I got nothing for you, but I do have here's a really simple way that you can work with it because we can't get rid of them, right? People are like, "Banish your inner critic and kick that imposter to the curb." Great, but that's like saying, "Get rid of your left arm." They're doing a job to help you, and properly trained, they're pretty good at what they do.
Oh my gosh, can you explain that a little bit? If they're here to do a job, like what is that job? I mean, you said it brain is here for survival. So are they here to just keep that survival? Is that what this is for?
Some of them, the front part of your brains are the logical parts, the back are the survival parts, again, broadly speaking. Your inner critic is a great one. Everyone thinks the inner critic is this terrible monster that needs to go. Granted, it can cause a lot of problems and be very, very damaging. However, properly trained using this type of quote parts work, the inner critic becomes a coach instead of a dictator. So when I'm sitting down to write a book and I'm not feeling inspired, I need a coach to go, all right, girl, like, let's get on this. Let's do this. I know you don't feel like it. It's 5 in the morning. You're tired, but we got this. Like, let's go. Let's suit up and show up. That's what a good coach does. If you know how to turn your inner critic into an inner coach, we don't always want our feelings validated. Sometimes we want a good butt kicking because that's how we grow and that's how we challenge ourselves. We just want it done in a loving, supportive way and not a shaming, abusive way. But the inner critic with this approach does turn into the inner coach. And that's a really useful job for it to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do they with this inner critic, how do some people end up with this shaming monster?
That's a family trauma thing. So that gets into, and again, we can go into the book goes a little bit into here's how these voices came to be, but it's less a book about why it's there and more of here's what we do to change it and make it feel better so life works better. But kids are not born knowing how to beat themselves up and have self doubt and imposter syndrome. We learn that. Whether or not our parents were abusive doesn't matter. If you see your father coming home and going, God, I'm such an idiot, then that kid learns,
Just
oh,
learned
that's a
behavior.
thing. Mhm.
Oh, so that's where they're learning. Okay, and this is so fascinating.
Yeah,
And does this affect our growth mindset? Does all of this, how they work together, affect whether we're more growth oriented or not? I'm just curious.
absolutely. I didn't grow up with really good models for what growth mindset and I have agency and control and I have choices and things I don't like I can change and things that are out of my control I can learn to live with and accommodate. And so if you don't have that modeled, you are going to have a really excessive loud inner critic. But on the flip side, if you have really permissive parents that let you do whatever you want, your inner voices aren't going to be critical, they're going to be too permissive. Don't worry about showing up. Yeah, cancel on your friend. Yeah, you can ghost that person. Why bother trying to do anything? And so it's grounded in attachment theory. And so I unpack again, I write the way I speak. It's very real talk. Here's how attachment creates internal voices. And then that's a little teeny tiny sliver. And then two-thirds of the book is here's what we do about it.
How do kids that come from these emotionally abusive homes then ever end up successful? You know, the high aces, if it's off the charts, then how will they ever end up if they haven't had the model, they've seen the negatives, how will they ever end up on the other side of that?
So my short answer is I don't know. I can tell you if you talk to people who've had adverse childhood experiences, and I'm one of them, I'm not comparing. It's just I've had a few things. A lot of them will either say there was a mentor or a person or a teacher or someone, but that's not true for everyone. Some people legit had nothing and no one, and somehow they still managed to access resilience and post traumatic growth. And honestly, I have no idea why or how that happens. I'm grateful that it does. And I
Our
would like
brains are
to.
really brains are weird.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just fascinating, right? How like you've mentioned, there's a lot of people who've made their life's work on get rid of the inner critic and the inner and you're like, no, that's like cutting off your arm, and it makes that makes sense to me. Like, let's name it to tame it, and then for your brain, like let's get everybody on the same team, on the same page. This is what I need, and here's where we're going. And I just thought it tied into the growth mindset because if you get scared of these different small things, like I'm scared to go out of the house, or I'm scared to start a business, or these limitations, I feel like, because it's your brain telling you, "I can't," or whatever your inner critic is telling you, you're never gonna get anywhere, which affects your growth mindset, which affects, are you a resilient by nature person? So I just feel like this is so fascinating.
I love it, and I mean, the worst feeling is and I've been assaulted, I have abuse, trigger warning, and the worst part of all of that, aside from the actual event, was this feeling of being terrified of my own mind, and this feeling of no matter where I am or who I'm with or what I do, I can never feel like I'm at home because my mind is such a terrible place to be, and so when you work with all of the different parts of yourself, you do create this internal sense of calmness, even if outside it's chaotic. This internal sense of you're welcome here and you're loved here and you're accepted here, even if outside things are a little bit messy. And so it's a process of building an internal home that's not subject to life's insanity.
Yeah, that's incredible. So with your work as a neuropsychotherapist and seeing clients, it's mostly the EMDR, like different kinds of therapies, right? Like taking the whole person into account.
Yes. I don't do EMDR personally. I do somatic experiencing, which is a body nervous system based approach. I'm trained in all the regular therapy stuff. So I like to mix. I like to do parts work and let's do attachment work and let's do body based somatic work and let's do weird art play stuff. But I think every person is so unique that it's really fun for me to go, all right, here's everything in my inventory of tools. Let's grab all of the ones that are going to create the perfect mix of tools, techniques, modalities, approaches. Some people don't want to do body-based work, and that's fine. There's a time and a place for everything. CBT, cognitive work, it's a bad rap, but there's a place at the table for almost every healing modality.
That's incredible. And is that specific to the neuropsychotherapist? Is that specific to your line of work? So if somebody's out there, if they're struggling and they're trying to find just a therapist to go to, like this is a very subset specialty. Like you'd have to actually look for the specialty to get these types of approaches. Is that right?
Unfortunately. So neuropsychotherapy isn't a designation. If you're listening and you're trying to figure out what do I do?
Mhm.
All neuropsychotherapy means is we factor in the nervous system and the body. It's not just thinking, thinking, thinking. So, somatic work, EMDR, anything that acknowledges you're not a floating head, you live in a physical, biological being, those would all fall under the umbrella of neuropsychotherapy. And if you've talked and talked and talked and thought about, and you're not getting anywhere, that's a big indicator light that doing a body based modality might be useful.
Okay, that is so good to know because it's so hard to find people, right? That's why our platform exists, but it's hard to find the right practitioner. So if we're taking this approach, I think it's could be super helpful for anybody listening. Britt, thank you so much for being here and sharing all of your insights and breaking down these really complex topics. I'm actually really excited about your book that's coming out next May. Um, Working with this, I think it's such a beautiful approach. Um, it's just such a beautiful approach versus saying, like, "Get rid of this, one inner piece." Like, this let's take the more reasonable approach based on a science-backed, basis. I just think that's, you know, if it's impossible to get rid of it, like, tame it, right? Let's get on the same page.
Payment and
Makes
train
more
it.
sense. Yeah. But before we go, a question that we ask all the guests on the show, could you share 3 fundamental pillars that contribute to your well-being? Oh my god,
Three,
yeah, and you answered this. If you don't remember, I have the answers. I forgot to tell you this when we started.
three fundamental pillars to my well being are one, Non-negotiable alone time. I need more alone time than most people, not most people, than any of the people I know, who, lots of whom are extroverts. I need alone time in order to be well. Two is I need to make sure that I go to therapy and take my medication and do the things that my brain needs to be supported in order to do what it needs to do in the world. And three is be really honest about what's true for me, about me on any given day. That keeps me well.
Oh my gosh, that was great. Where can our listeners connect with you? Well, we're definitely going to make the links to the book, and hopefully you'll give us the links to the book that's coming out next May. But can you share with our listeners how they can access you or your become a client or the book?
Yeah, so find me on Instagram where I have terrible boundaries and I'm there a lot. It's just me, it's not my team. If you get a comment from me, it's me at Britt Frank. My website is scienceofstuck.com and you can find my books wherever you buy books.
Okay, awesome. Britt, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and your personal story and the growth. I mean, I think it's a beautiful resilience story and just how you made so many of these, like you said, your micro yeses and have just built this massive empire. And I think just beautiful. And I hope it's empowering to whoever is listening today to get unstuck, but also know that anything is possible. Anything and everything is actually possible.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for listening. This has been Sophia Unfiltered, a podcast by Sophia Health, the #1 marketplace for health and wellness. Find services, classes, and products from the top health and wellness providers. Book an appointment or join live classes now. I'm your host, Riley Reese. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear about it in the comments section of your favorite podcast provider or with a 5-star rating. Let us know what your biggest takeaway from this episode was, or share it with someone you hope to inspire. Join us again next time for more real conversations, stories, and insights that help empower you with the knowledge and inspiration needed to transform how we care for ourselves.